For people who want to know what is the Keith Network, the whole point of my talk show is to show you that even with having a learning disability, I can still amount to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities to never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them that labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be, so prove to them you can still amount to something.
Hey everyone, this is David Marchant here, actor from Boston, Massachusetts. I was just interviewed by the amazing Keith Andrew of the Keith Andrew Network show. You guys got to check him out. Please look him up and definitely give him a talk. He will make you think about things and make you realize things that you never thought possible. He's an amazing guy, a great friend, and be sure to get an interview by him. Become friends right away. Look him up. He won't let you down. Thanks, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching the one and only Keith Andrew Network. I'm here with a great guest, as you heard from the recommendation. This is episode 1038. That is right, 1038. This will be played on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and all social medias. First question I want to ask you is, well, first off, I want to say thank you for your service, number one. And number two, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm glad to serve you and serve our country as well.
Now, the honor's all mine. Now, we can talk about anything you want. I have no cards up my sleeve. You ask me a question, I ask you. It's a normal conversation, supporting a message, plus you make a new friend, so it's a win-win. You can keep it PG, PG-13, uncensored. I'm going to leave that completely up to you. And first question I want to ask you is, tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is David Marchant, and I am from Boston, Massachusetts, more specifically the Dorchester section of Boston, which is also where the Wahlberg family's from, close by to where Chris Evans is from, also very close by to where Ben Affleck and Matt Damon are from down the road. So, big history. A lot of Boston people that have made it pretty successful in their careers are from this area. And I'm looking to follow suit. So I'm working hard and a lot of background, a lot of history, a lot of life experience behind me. And right now I'm just putting it all into the acting career, and been going at it for, about 3.5 years now, from around the pandemic time. And so far, so good. Looking to make it a lifestyle, a career change, and go all the way. No stopping me from here.
I agree. And hey, maybe one day we can get like a cup of coffee or something.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be wonderful. Look forward to it.
Absolutely. The next one I want to talk to you about is your hoodie. What's that stand for?
All right, here we got OFD, originally from Dorchester, Massachusetts. Like I just stated, got to always represent Dorchester. More specifically, you can buy a lot of gear representing Dorchester, South Boston, and many other parts of Massachusetts right at College Hype, which is located in Dorchester, Mass. So be sure to check them out.
Absolutely. Actually, I want to ask you a funny question. I want you to be brutally honest. A lot of people say when you go to Boston, they kind of don't like New Yorkers. Is that true? And I think
it's a fun rivalry, though. There's definitely been instances where you hear people getting, who knows, shot at, stabbed, or some silliness over stuff like that. But I've had some of my best friends. I used to be in the military. I was a police officer, and some of my best friends were from New York. And it's always a fun time going back and forth at it. So it's always a friendly thing, and it's a fun history.
Yeah, I agree. It's always fun to have fun with people. Don't be an asshole or anything about
exactly, it. That's right. Yeah, a lot of people take it too far, and I'm not going to say they have problems, but we all have our own problems. But it's definitely a fun rivalry, and no need to take it any further than that.
I don't know if it's aired in Boston, but it's always being aired on the radio. I don't remember the name of the commercial, but it always ends with, it says, oh, you take medication, medication's good, and it always ends with, Lou is like you, Lou's on meds too. And every time I hear that, I just start laughing.
Yeah, that does sound a little familiar. I'm trying to think what that could be. I'm not really sure. I must have seen it. It does sound very familiar, but I'll have to get back to you on that one.
Oh, absolutely. The next one I want to ask you is, are you a professional wrestling fan or a hockey fan?
Well, I'm definitely a huge hockey fan, Boston Bruins all the way, but I did grow up as a big WWF fan before it was WWE. And as we heard today, actually, that Big Sheik just died, right? So that was a big news, and I know The Rock also shared that on his channel. So it's a lot of sad news in the WWE family. But yeah, I love the WWF growing up. Big Bret Hart, Owen Hart fan. Obviously Hulk Hogan. Geez, we got Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Undertaker. Those are all my crew. I used to buy the ice creams with all the wrestling figures on them, right? Those are the best. And
See,
the day that those disappeared was a very disappointing day.
see, I knew I liked you for a reason.
Okay.
So who is one of your favorite wrestlers? For me, hands down, Owen and Brett were the best ones, and Shawn
Right. I have to
Michaels.
say, yeah, I agree. Let's see. Owen was probably, I would say, maybe my favorite. I did love Stone Cold Steve Austin and even Triple H, but I'd have to say Owen. When Owen Hart passed away, from when he was doing stunts and all that, when he fell high off the above thing there, I think it was the ladder or the rope or something, the overhang. Yeah, I remember I was very upset at a young age. I was probably only around 10, 12 years old or something like that. So yeah, it was probably early 90s, I believe. Yeah, that was an upsetting time. So I definitely remember that. But Stone Cold, yeah, Triple H, and my favorite tag team, though I can't remember their name, but it was an awesome group. But they had those big spikes on their shoulders. What were
Oh,
they?
LOD.
Yeah, LOD, man. Yeah, I love them. Those guys were pretty cool back then.
My one of my favorite tag teams next to Legion Doom. It's funny because you hear stories, the Bulldog didn't get along with Luger didn't get along with the Bulldog, but the Allied powers, they looked phenomenal, and they should have been tag team champions. Unfortunately, Luger taking steroids, and maybe Davey Boy did not saying anything, but it was great. They had a great match at WrestleMania 11. They debuted, and then they were supposed to win the belts, but you know. But going back to Owen, I was really upset hearing that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were. That was a big devastating thing around the world. So I think that made a big impact, changed the whole future and the history of the WWF at the time for many years. So but yeah, and now to get back into the hockey thing, yes, I'm a big Boston Bruins fan, and we had the best record this year, and that was a very disappointing thing to see them go down in the first round of the playoffs. But it seems like they've been doing that every year now, so we're almost getting used to it.
My whole well, my brother is a big LA fan.
Okay.
I'm actually I think it's Blackhawks, stand corrected. And it's funny he likes to poke fun at my dad, who's a diehard Ranger fan. But the
Okay.
reason I bring it up is some of the fans, you go to have fun. Of course, people get drunk getting into fights, and not a big deal or anything. You just keep it professional. But you probably heard a story. These guys were walking out. One was walking out. One was walking in. And I think it was a Ranger fan or Islander fan. Actually, an Islander fan. It would make sense. It was two teams. It was at the Garden. And one of the fans sucker punched the other guy in the face. And it's kind of just completely knocked him out. It's like, oh, that was a fun game as far as you remember.
Well, yeah, I mean, going back to like you said, I mean, that was a big thing versus the Boston the Yankees thing. That's always been, if Boston fans go up to New York, or vice versa, New York coming to Boston, there's always unfortunately some type of really bad, dramatic, even fatal incident. Usually it is something involved fighting, goes to knives. Usually there's not too many gun incidents, I don't think there, but it is usually like a stabbing type situation. And yeah, it's pretty sad how they take a fun sports rivalry to the next level like that. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure things like that, obviously we all know happen probably on a daily basis. And it's just part of the whole that part of the entertainment industry as far as the sports world goes. And I'm sure there's some of it in every other part of the entertainment industry as well.
I agree. Now, the first question I want to ask you is, what attracted you to begin your career as a professional actor?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. And it's probably the hardest one. It seems like it should be the easiest one. It's a long story, but let's see. I'll try to sum it up for you the best I can. Growing up, my biggest dream, although I loved movies and everything growing up, I never really thought about being an actor as a kid. I just didn't think it was even an option. I come from, a big family, but not really a successful family, and no one that really had the drive or the support for me to pursue something like that. So I never even had that idea growing up. So my dream was when I first seen Top Gun and Tom Cruise, I wanted to be a fighter pilot since I was as long as I can remember. So as I grew older and got closer and closer till I was 18 years old, I joined the military, the Air Force, right when I was 18 years old, and right after graduating high school, which was Fenway High, actually, which was right behind Fenway Park at the time. And yeah, I went right into the Air Force, and the easiest way to get in is to say you want to be a cop. So that's what I got into, because to be a pilot, you need a 4-year bachelor's degree to do that in some type of an avionics field, preferably. So my goal was to be a security forces member in the Air Force, which is like military police. I joined that in 2002, June 4th, 2002. So what, we're looking at a little over 21 years ago now. So I might look young, but I'm not a spring chicken anymore, but I try to stay young and in shape. But to get back on the subject here, as I joined the Air Force, I did some college on the side while I was, pursuing that career. It was long days being a cop in the military. After about a year and a half of doing that, I started in San Antonio, Texas, and then I went up to Great Falls, Montana, which was a big culture shock in itself, coming definitely from Boston. So, it was very different up there, and we guarded nuclear missiles, did all kinds of stuff. I got orders from there to go to Andrews Air Force Base over in Maryland for my last 4.5 years or so. I signed for 6. And I went over to Andrews Air Force Base, where I ended up working directly for President Bush. I worked for Air Force One security team. They were called PAG, Presidential Airlift Group. And I was the one when he got off of, after he got off Marine One helicopter, or if he got off Air Force One, that would be my part. Anything we guarded, he had 2 Air Force One planes, President George Bush II Jr., 2 Air Force One planes, and you never know which one is going to go out. We spent 24/7 guarding that, patrolling it. It was in a very highly secure, I had a top secret Yankee white security clearance. And we see high generals. We've seen the president, the vice president almost on a daily basis, shake their hands, saluting them. Everything for 4 years straight, I did that. And, doing that obviously was a big job in itself. It took away my time of doing my college classes to go more towards my piloting career, my fighter pilot. So I ended up a little, I guess, changing my mind towards the fighter pilot thing over the years because of just how busy the career was already keeping me. And I also had another part of that life was I got married young too. So as soon as I joined the military back in June of 2002, I got married to my ex-wife at the time. Now she's my ex-wife, but we got married at a young age. We were only 18 years old then. But we had some kids, and when you have a family and you're in the military, especially in the cop career field, you don't have time for anything else. So I didn't have time to do much. So I left the college thing. And I stayed working for the president up until about 2006. I ended up deploying to Iraq at that time. We were on a special assignment working for the president for Air Force One. So we were not supposed to deploy overseas, but they made an exception for me for whatever reason. So I ended up going, and I went over there for about 10 months, I think it was. It was only supposed to be no more than 6, and we ended up getting extended. And I would say that was definitely a learning experience, and it's definitely something that changed my life. Although I didn't want to go, I was afraid. I had a short notice. I was only 2 weeks out from my notice. I didn't get a 6-month notice like everyone else did. It was a short notification for myself and my family at the time. And that was a big experience that I made it there. I got through it. Had some bad experiences over there. It was tough, but I made it back in one piece and was grateful for that. Got my veteran status, and I ended up getting out of the military a couple months early on approval from our commander, because I went right back to Boston from there. They let me get out a couple months early to go pursue Boston police back in Boston. So pretty much, I ended up separating in January of 2008 from the military, and I was already in the police academy in Boston in May of 2008. So I moved pretty quickly right into the police career field, which is where I'm sure you'll ask about this as well. But I also spent 7 years as a Boston police officer. And I was also at the Boston Marathon bombing working on duty. And that was another tough experience. So, there's probably not much through my life that I haven't been through. So I don't want to keep babbling on here. But yeah, that's a synopsis. And then, all the rest is history from there. So to answer your question more specifically, after the police, I started a towing company. I resigned from that to pursue other ventures, started a towing company. And then when the pandemic hit, I just realized I wasn't using my full potential. I felt like I had so much more to give to the world as far as talent than just to be a towing operator and an owner of a small family-owned business. So I decided to put that to the wayside, and I just said I couldn't wait off anymore, and I had to pursue my newly found dreams of becoming an entertainer. And I really enjoyed. I've been watching actors for years and years since I was younger, and I just never knew that was an option, like I said. And once I realized, I was watching a movie one day when the pandemic first started, and I said, wow, we're all stuck in here. Everyone's watching every show and every movie they can under the sun. But why am I going to sit here watching this when I can go do it and go be in it myself? I don't want to sit here and watch it. I want to go in there. I want to be on that camera. And that's what I did. And I never looked back. I started doing background work at the beginning. That's how I got my vouchers to join the SAG-AFTRA union, which I've been part of for about a year and a half now. And, I'm up to about, I have 14 credits now on IMDb. Only a few background, the rest are all roles, and I have a lot of big things coming up. I just booked and completed a role for the Compatriots film up here in New England. It's a pretty big feature film, and I just booked a role as a police officer in that. And I just filmed actually back on June 1st, so that should be coming out soon, hopefully hitting the festivals. But now I'm up to my 15th credit in only 3 years, and I'm getting a lot of interest. I'm hitting the ground running. And a lot of traction. It's picking up. So I'm sticking with it. I'm working hard around the clock. And long story short, to answer your question, I'm here and I'm going all the way.
Absolutely. And it's all about networking. And who knows, like I said, maybe one day we can actually, I know we're working together right now, but maybe we can work together on like a project or something.
That would be amazing. Yeah, I'm always looking to collaborate. I'm always collaborating and networking, and as much as I can. It's all about, who you work with, who you know. And, honestly with me is, being from the city of Boston, especially Dorchester, it's a tough neighborhood. And, you lose your own family. You lose a lot of members of your family. You grow distant with people. I lost a lot of my friends, all due to drugs and jail and drinking and everything else. So these days, the only friends I have are basically the actors that I work with and collaborate with, network with. And, I'll tell you though, actors, people like yourself, people I've met on sets, they're the best people I've ever met in my life, honestly. So I'm very grateful that, I'm here now. And I'm a true believer after everything that's happened to me and how many times I wanted to give up on life. I always stuck with it. And, as we know, it always ends up working its way out in the end. And, I'm a true believer, like I was saying, of everything happens for a reason. It surely does, and it always works out. And fate and destiny is all here on our side. So what's meant to be will be.
I agree with you. So the next one I'm going to ask you is about disabilities. Besides me, obviously, have you worked with people with disabilities? And for people who want to follow in your footsteps, what are some of your words of wisdom?
Well, as far as I can think of working with people with disabilities, I mean, I worked, I think, with like a disabled veterans. And if you haven't known, I'm also a disabled veteran myself. So, when I was in the military, I ended up getting a really bad back and some bad knees and bad neck and all that good stuff. And also being in the police career field, you don't really stay in the best of shape over the years. So I significantly gained a lot of weight when I was in the military and in the police force. It caused me, from the military carrying all that heavy gear, especially during the Iraq time, I messed up my spine a little bit. My knees, like I said, I have tinnitus in my ears from working around the planes. So I am a disabled veteran, a military based, disability, not really, like a full disabled person, I would say, but I do have, service-connected disability. So I am through the VA hospital, and I'm a service-connected disabled veteran for life. And any people with any disabilities, and especially disabled veterans that I've met, have been amazing. It's these people have been through it all. So similar to like myself and everyone else I've met. You just never give up. Like there was this police instructor that I met when I was in the police academy in Boston, and his main thing, he would yell at us all the time, and no matter how much we wanted to quit, he would yell at us and say, "Never quit, never die." You know what I mean? So basically, that sticks in my head to this day, because no matter what you're going through, you just keep telling yourself, never quit, and you definitely never die. Never let yourself die, never quit, never give up, never let no one take you down. And that's all you'll need to make it all the way.
Great. Now I'm going to ask you some hard-hitting questions, so you can tell me to shut up if you don't want to answer it. But you mentioned you were in the Air Force. Were you ever in a dogfight, number one? And did you see things that you don't or weren't allowed to talk about? For an example, have you seen UFOs?
Well, no. I mean, if I have, honestly, I probably wouldn't be able to talk about it, but I probably would anyways, because my clearance is no longer active. But but anyways, when I was in the military, I was never in a dogfight per se. I've been in many situations. A couple times when I worked law enforcement on the base, I had to drive around the police car, respond to domestic violence situations on base with families. Those are always the hardest calls. There was a lot of things with younger kids. It's usually, you see people at the worst times in their lives when you work police, military, and all that. And you're there, I'm a people pleaser. So I'm a big fan of customer service. That's why I've always chosen jobs like the military, police, and even the towing. It's all about helping people as much as I can. there's something that can't be touched. It's unmatched. The feeling you get when you can truly help somebody, So to go back to your question, I've never myself personally been in a dogfight. There's been situations, in those situations, what I'm talking about, those specific situations, dangerous situations where I have drawn my weapon. I've never had to fire. Not that I can recall. Yep.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I apologize.
No
But
problem.
don't they ever say, don't draw your gun unless you're going to use it?
Well, yes, but that's the thing is, it's not, you don't have to draw it, say you're gonna use it. You have to draw it to be ready to use it if needed. Some people just want to always draw it and have it out, but they don't have no clue on what's the next step after that. So, unfortunately, people freeze up, or they just think taking that out is going to be a deterrent, and that's going to automatically scare people away. But, not in the military. I wasn't shot at directly when I was in the military, but we did have mortars. There was some mortar bombs and missile that we seen shoot within, it was probably about maybe 50 to 100 feet over our heads. And we seen it explode probably about, I don't know, look like a couple kilometers, maybe half a mile or something away. We seen big explosions. So I worked at Camp Bucca, Iraq, which was a detainment facility for all the Iraq detainees, they call them, not prisoners. Those are all the Iraqi people that got scooped up out of all their villages because they were all certain ones of them, some of them were wanted for crimes against other people or American soldiers themselves. So we had to guard thousands and thousands of them. When I first got there was about, I don't know, I think it was like 3,500 of them. When I left, there was like something like 23,000 of them, so, it's crazy too, because a little off subject here, but some of these Iraqi detainees, you think are the nicest guys in the world. They speak to you very nice and politely. They're very educated. And then, you find out later that they're so smart that they're tricking you. A lot of them are in there for bad things. Like I found out there was this one guy that was, he snuck in materials. They all sneak in their cigarettes and their alcohol somehow. You don't know how they get it. Some of them are even, they sew up stuff with yarn, and they're making like baby booties for my wife was pregnant at the time. And then they're making me baby booties saying this is for your wife and your baby. And they want to become your best friends. And you find out later that they're in there for beheading American soldiers in their village. So it's definitely a wake up call when you start thinking about that stuff and watching your back and who you can trust. But to get back into that directly, I have not been fired at in the military. I wasn't in no dog fights per se, but when I was in the Boston police, I was definitely had guns pulled on me. I was definitely shot at. I was definitely almost stabbed. And then, like I spoke to you a little bit briefly before the interview, I was at the Boston Marathon bombing, where I worked on duty for that, and I was there for both explosions. And I wasn't able to go home to my family for a full week after that until one of the brothers, the bomber brothers, one of them was killed by his own brother, and then the other brother ended up getting caught in local town of Watertown, Massachusetts, which is now in prison for life, looking at the death penalty now. So, I had a big part in all of that, which is also leads to my point of looking at Patriots Day, the movie, which is with Mark Wahlberg. That's an amazing movie that everyone should check out if they haven't seen it. And that's pretty close to how the real story went down, as I was there the whole week watching it all. And I was part of those teams that were going in and out of Boston looking for those guys, and in and out of Watertown and all that. So it's definitely a life-changing experience. And I'm grateful to have those stories and those experiences to share, although they cause a little, trauma and PTSD in our lives. But it's one of the most depressing, sad things that could ever happen to the city of Boston. But it's also one of the best things in a way, as far as camaraderie and, seeing how a city like Boston could come together, and nothing could take us down. And we shut down the whole city to find those guys. So I know I'm getting off subject here, but, it's too bad that, that camaraderie is lost now after the pandemic. A lot of people are really very independent now. People don't want to really communicate with people anymore. They don't want to socialize. They definitely don't want to get together in person anymore. Yeah. And hopefully we can change that in the years to come. Hopefully, we all need each other. We have to depend on each other. And, this world, this whole culture, this whole earth will fall apart if we don't stand by each other. So hopefully we can work together to fix that.
No, you're absolutely right. The one thing I do want to say before I pass the show over and wrap up, on September 11th, people came together, from, neighborhoods and other countries, not the ones who were behind it, but other countries who offered support. There was a strong support, especially in Boston, as you just mentioned, people came together. But yet with this pandemic, it's kind of like, everyone, not saying everyone, some people have the me mentality. Now, give me my toilet paper, give me my Imodiums. But it's kind of, my dad just is like being under house arrest. But going back after being home, in my case, for 4 years, so of course I go out and do like shopping and whatever. But actually going out to like a restaurant, it feels weird. My parents went to the mall recently, and they say this feels like a Twilight Zone, because it felt so awkward.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that goes back to my point, what I said, and you just said September 11th, that was a big reason why I joined the military. I joined in 2002, which was, I joined about 9 months after September 11th, just about 9 months. And, but that was my biggest motivation, is that day. Just like, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of other soldiers joined because of that day. And, that was another part of our, look at what happened in New York. All, the buildings go down, everyone comes together. Nothing can stop New York City, so that's a very, very big, memorable tragedy, of course, big, memorable thing that also definitely changed the history of this country. And it's sad that, in the end, no matter what we did over in Iraq, most of that war anyways, I'll let you know this, is when you're over there in these wars, all of us, we don't even know what we're there for. We don't even know what we're fighting for. No one does. We all look at each other and say, what are we even still doing here? Why are we even here? And it's pretty sad, because it all comes down to money and oil and all that kind of political stuff, and it's pretty sad that that's what it came to. And although we pulled out pretty much now out of Iraq and everything, who knows what the next tragedy is going to be. Hopefully there won't be, but there's always something. And in the end, when you look at it, the Iraqi people really destroyed our country that day, because no matter if we survived it and we got through it, look what happened to our security at the airports, at the borders. Everything is totally, totally different now, totally, ruined. You don't have that lifestyle that we used to have back in the 80s and the 90s and early 2000s, where it just felt like freedom and everyone was happy, and, it was just, you could go anywhere, and it felt more like the free country spirit, which now, we no longer have. So yeah, that reiterates the point you just said. The camaraderie, those big things brought us together, and the pandemic definitely brought us apart as a society.
Well, we will definitely do a part two. I know a couple other people who are in the Marines. I would love to do a whole Army episode. Well, Army Marine episode. I'd love to have you part of it. Do have a couple questions for you off the air. But how can our fans and listeners get in touch with you?
Well, you can check me out, of course, on Instagram. I love to get followers, and I'm usually always the first one to follow you back. So, like I said, I love networking and everything. So please look me up. So you can find me if you type in David Marchant, my full name, DavidMarchant. You will find me. I should be the first one that pops up, and my handle is actually Dave Marchant Official, DaveMarchantOfficial. So Dave Marchant Official, or my full real name, David Marchant. That's Instagram, and also Facebook is the same, David Marchant. Let's see here. You got on TikTok, I believe it's also Dave Marchant Official or David Marchant Official. It's pretty much the same across the board on all platforms. So social media is the easiest way. I have a website, davemarchant.com. You can also check that out. That gives a lot of my history and the projects that I've worked on and the stuff that's upcoming as well.
But wrapping up, it was a real honor and privilege having you as a guest. Again, thank you for your service, and I'm looking forward to part 2, John.